Take a breath. Welcome to Space to Exhale, the podcast, weekly inspiration for self-love and soft living. I am your host, Lisa Hurley. I'm a 3-time Anthem Award winner, Reiki master, and community builder. And I'm the author of the book Space to Exhale. Through healing modalities like breathwork, affirmations, and meditations, I'll guide you on a life-changing journey to help you know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and create much-needed space to exhale. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Space to Exhale, the podcast, a safe, serene sanctuary where we focus on high vibrations, affirmations, soft living, and self-care. I'm your host, Lisa Hurley, and I'm the author of Space to Exhale, a handbook for curating a soft, centered, serene life. I'm here to help us all do just that. Relax, take a breath, say no to hustle culture, and yes to a life of ease. My hope and a dream is for us all to curate lives that we don't feel we need a break from. Today, y'all are in for a treat because we will be joined by a very special guest and my friend, Dana Brownlee. And let me just read you her bio while I add her to the stage, okay? Because Miss Dana is absolutely fabulous. So, Dana Brownlee is proof that you don't have to choose between practical and inspiring. You can have both. An Atlanta-based speaker, trainer, author, and entrepreneur, Dana has spent the last 20 years helping teams cut through the chaos, lead with confidence, and turn friction into forward momentum. She began her career as a project manager and a business strategy consultant, experiences that fueled her passion for helping organizations work smarter, not harder. Today, as founder of Professionalism Matters, she's traveled the globe delivering high energy workshops and keynotes, known for use it tomorrow strategies that stick. A LinkedIn learning instructor, author of The Unwritten Rules of Managing Up, Barrett Kohler 2019, and former Forbes Career Senior Contributor, Dana's insights have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, Fast Money and Fast Company. In early 2026, she will launch the Monetize Your Brilliance webinar series to empower women entrepreneurs with the lessons she's learned building a thriving training and speaking business. Dana, welcome.
Hey there. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. I'm so excited to be with you.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. This has been a long time. We've been friends for years, but seeing
Yes,
each other on camera, it hasn't happened in a good while.
I
So
know. I
good to see your
know.
face.
Yes. And so I'm just thrilled to be here to see you and be here with your audience. And I just love what you're doing. We need more of this.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And I have to also say, before we even start, I have to say, I've often posted that writing a book might be a solitary endeavor, but publishing a book takes a village. And so I want to publicly, I know I've said it before, but in writing, not verbally. So publicly say thank you to you for being part of my village, because you've been there from the beginning. Every request I make, and there have been many. You're
No,
like,
there have
you
not.
don't
And it
think
was such a
I've been feeling that
joy.
way, but you're just like, oh, absolutely, I'm there, whatever you need. And thank you so much. You have no idea how much your support has meant and how, you've made the whole publishing journey easier. So thanks a lot for that.
Well, you are so welcome. And your book was such a gift, and
Oh,
everyone needs to run out and get it if they haven't gotten it yet. And it was just such a gift to the world. And so I'm just so happy to support you and support it.
Thank you, thank you. So you've been you've been in the audience before. You know how this goes. So we start each show with a few breaths. It's called Space to Exhale. We are going to absolutely take a moment to breathe deep and take a moment to exhale. So let us all just close our eyes. Ah, bring your shoulders down away from your ears. Maybe just gently move your neck and your head from side to side. Relax a bit. And now inhale slowly through your nose. Inhale and exhale. Try and relax all of the muscles around your eyes and in your forehead. And inhale and exhale. And one more time. Inhale and exhale. Now, as we all come back into the room, every show, I post an affirmation for us to focus on during the show because speaking to oneself positively is so important. And today's topic is about knowing yourself, knowing who you are, remembering who you are. And so today's affirmation is I am choosing to remember who I am. So as we go through the episode, everybody in the audience, whether you're team live, team replay, just remember this. Remember this affirmation. I am choosing to remember who. So okay, Miss Dana.
I love that. I love that
Thank you.
affirmation.
Thank you. Thank you. It's I was inspired by what you said you wanted to focus on. I'm like, okay, this is good. This makes sense. And it will keep us focused. And it's such something that we're often like not encouraged to do. It's to sort of like stand up in our own power. So this is an important episode. So now, I know you as, a friend, a supporter, someone, like I said, who's in my village and in my corner. But, in the States and internationally, like you're noteworthy, like you have a career, like you're globally recognized speaker, trainer, entrepreneur, you're a trainer on LinkedIn, you have a few courses. But my question is, beyond all of the achievements and accolades, who is Dana? Who are you at your core when you know the stage lights are off, when the mic is off, when the room is quiet? Like who are you at your core?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me. I think that this is so important. I think that we need role models like you, like future Kane. I think she's so amazing at this. And when you say remember who you are, it sounds so simple, but it's so powerful. And you say that, and I hear James Earl Jones's voice in my ear. I'm thinking like Simba, remember who you are.
Remember who you are.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's just that whether it's Wizard of Oz or Simba or whoever, it's like we have the power within us. It's just about tapping into that power, and that's such a powerful reminder for all of us. So just thank you for that. But who I am, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of people have a lot on their plate. I feel like I play a lot of different roles. I feel like at my core, in this moment and for this space of time, I'm probably most prominently a really active mom. That's what I tend to lean into on most days, and that's kind of driving me. And it it's interesting because you can't lose yourself in that, but I'm consciously leaning into that. I have two teenagers. Everything going on in the world right now, it's so important to me to help guide them, to help protect them. I know that they will not be in my house much longer. And so that's really, really important to me. Like I feel really strongly that, I've been given a spiritual assignment they're like, I don't know, 8 billion people in the world, but I feel a responsibility to two. And
You
so
have your two. You have your two. Exactly.
I'm shepherding those two, and
Yeah.
I feel really strongly. And so that gives me a great sense of purpose. And then I also feel a fidelity to myself in terms of what's important to me, how I want to live my life. And I feel, that this isn't a dress rehearsal. I think oftentimes we put things off, I'm going to get healthy when, or I'm going to treat myself better when. And, if nothing else, I think COVID kind of showed us that, you've got to live your life for now. And so I've been so blessed and so fortunate to be an entrepreneur for more than 2 decades. And with that, part of the beauty is getting to design a life that reflects my priorities and my values. And so while a lot of it is focused on my kids, a lot of it is also focused on me and designing the life that I want to have each and every day to the extent that I can.
I love that. And was that a decision that you made? Because you said for more than 20 years, right? So was that
Yeah.
a decision that you made sort of like early-ish in your career that, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't want to, well, I always say, beyond the plantation, that probably is not a very kind way to bring it.
Right, right,
But
right.
here we are. It is what it is. But you
Yeah.
understand what I mean.
No, absolutely. I understand. No, for me, it wasn't. For me, in fact, I was kind of thinking about that this morning. Maybe it was in anticipation of this conversation. In my case, at the time, I was in my early 30s. I was around 30-ish, and I had been a strategy consultant for a large IT company. And we would go into organizations, and I would facilitate team building retreats, and I would, manage projects, and I would conduct workshops. And it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, well, they're billing me out at that point, it was several $100 an hour.
Right.
And certainly I was only getting a small portion of that. So it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, well, why wouldn't I just do this on my own? And to be honest, at the time, I didn't necessarily realize the gravity of what I was doing when, I walked away from a really comfortable kind of 6-figure role and at, 30 or so. And I was, I just thought that I could just do it on my own. And, looking back, I say, sometimes ignorance can be a blessing, because I was really ignorant to a lot. I didn't know the gravity. In fact, my dad kept saying to me, why don't you go to law school? Like, what's going,
Right.
you know how Black parents like,
Listen,
go to
get
the
a good
post
job.
office, get a good
Go
job.
get a good
Just
job.
get a good job. Get you a good government job. Okay. And I had an amazing job. He's sitting here like, wait a minute, you make 6 figures and you're leaving your job.
Early in your career.
Yeah, exactly. Like in my, like I said, at that point I was 30, 31.
Yeah.
He's like, and you're leaving and you work from home and you're leaving your job for what reason? Like, so at the time, no, it was not necessarily this grand, wonderful plan. And I was single. I had no kids.
Right.
I had a good life. I was traveling every week, but of course that gets old
Yes.
really quickly. But I just felt that I could do it on my own. And some things, I will say, to fill in the gap, some things were happening at the company and my boss had left that I was, really close to. And there were some things happening that were not necessarily desirable for me. And I just felt like this would be the best time. And so Lord knows I had God's grace and covering, because I didn't know what I was doing. But in retrospect, it was the biggest blessing I ever could have had, because it gave me autonomy over my life for the past 22 years. And not to mention when kids come along and you've got to go to carpool and, you've got to go to school events. And so for us, I mean, my husband has a very traditional, 9-to-5 sort of job. And me, I have the flexibility. It's been such an amazing, amazing blessing.
Yes. I mean, it sounds, I talk sometimes about being a millionaire of your time, right? Like having, like you said, like having full autonomy over your time.
Yes.
So, like you said, if it, you have kids, you have your husband, you have your wider family, and if those people in your life are important, then it is also important for you to be able to actually be able to show up for them. And
Oh,
so I love
absolutely.
that you, even though it might have started from an semi-accidental ignorance is bliss situation, right?
Yes. Yes.
When I tell you, sometimes ignorance is bliss is so wonderful. It is such a blessing because you sometimes when you don't know or realize how much is at
Yes.
stake, you actually
Yeah.
move with more power
Oh yeah.
because you're
It's
not
like you don't
constantly
know to
thinking,
be scared.
you don't know to be
You
scared.
yeah, you don't know to be scared. You don't know to doubt yourself. Like you think you can do anything.
Yeah.
I remember watching a documentary one time about like Keenan Ivory Wayans, and he was talking about the early start of, producing stuff. He said they would just go out on the streets in New York and just start filming. He was like, I didn't know I needed permits, and I didn't know, I was just out here doing it. I was doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we'll talk ourselves out of doing the thing. We'll talk
Yes.
ourselves out of our own brilliance because of that questioning. What did this and what if this happens? And then negative fantasies, and I can't do that. And, all this like imposter syndrome kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just saying, no, I know I'm good. And that's the other thing. I always knew, not that, I'm infallible, but I knew I was good. I knew I was great. I knew I was much better than most people who were out there. I was seeing people making way more money than I was making. And I knew I was more talented, and I knew it wasn't that hard. It's like I didn't have to be a rocket scientist to be
Yeah.
successful. And so that
I love
ignorance
that.
was definitely a blessing. I went out there and kind of did the thing, and sometimes you figure it out as you're doing it.
Yeah.
But it was a huge blessing for me.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And I love that you said I knew I was smart, I knew I was talented, I knew I could do it. Definitely smarter than a lot of other people that are out there. All of that is part
Yes.
of self confidence and self knowledge and all and everything that we're talking about today. And so it seems to me like your awareness of yourself, not in a braggadocious way, just this is
No,
actually who I
yes.
am, this is who I am, this is what I'm capable of, and that has allowed you to over the years build exactly the kind of life that you want. So for the listeners out there, why do you believe that self knowledge is a crucial starting point for building a life of whatever you want: peace, joy, alignment, fulfillment, abundance? It's
Right.
worked for you. So now looking back, why do you believe that self knowledge is a good starting point for that?
Well, because I think it's so critical. We're not going to do what we don't see. We're not going to,
Mm,
we're not even going to try to achieve that goal if we think it's beyond our reach. So we have to know that we have that brilliance within us before
yes.
we actually work to activate it.
Right.
Like, great example for me, like my husband, to me, is the smartest person I know. I mean, he's brilliant. He truly is. But he didn't have the confidence. And
Mm,
he was a Black boy in Chicago, and he didn't have a lot of people around him to guide him, to help him. He had teachers telling him that he should go to vocational school, and at one point he asked for a recommendation for medical school, and the woman, whoever the professor, said, well, you're not medical school material. I can't write you a recommendation because that's not, you're not that material. And of course, he's been a physician now for 30 years. But
mm,
he even told me, he said, Dana, I had so little confidence
mhm.
that if I had known about physician assistant, like he's old enough that I guess that was a newer kind of thing. He
Yes,
was like,
yes.
they didn't really, I don't know if they didn't have physician assistant school when he was there or if he just didn't know about it. But he said, Dana, if I had known that there was a physician assistant track, he said, I'll tell you 100%, that's what I would have pursued, because I wouldn't have seen myself. He said the only reason why I actually became a physician was because there wasn't that, like slightly
Like
easier track
interim,
for
right,
me to
exactly.
jump onto. He
Wow.
said if I had had that, I probably would never would have become a physician. I would have, and nothing against physician assistants, it's an amazing path. But
Yeah.
the point is, and this is one of the reasons why, your community and other communities, and just, talking, having a circle of people around you who love you, who see the brilliance and the spark and the talent within you, and getting those reminders is so critically important, because we're not going to even pursue those goals if we think that it's outside of our reach. And so it all starts with knowing that we can do it. It's just what we tell our kids. I mean, that you can do it. So it's critically important.
Oh my gosh, thanks for sharing that, because I feel like your husband's story is similar to probably to many other people that maybe are listening or have had that kind of experience. And it can go either way. Like you said, either someone doubts you or you have self-doubts, and then you don't pursue what you could, or you happen into it sort of like, oh, I guess that's it. And then it works out perfectly fine. But having that self-knowledge, that is the absolute key. I always knew, I don't know that I had the language for it when I was growing up, as a child, but I definitely knew, even though I've ended up in corporate, right? But I would not call myself a corporate person, if you want that, right? But I always knew I was not a corporate person. I always knew, I'm a creative, and so something in whatever I do in my life is going to be on that path of creativity and creative expression and so on. And it really, even if your career ends up going in a different direction than, like you said, your parents or your village or whatever, or even you want it for yourself, knowing who you are helps you build maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a side hustle. Can we just say here that, folks, every side quest and every side hustle does not necessarily have to be monetized. You can actually just have a hobby, and enjoy yourself and relax after work. So there's that. But the having the knowledge that, oh, I'm a creative, allowed me to pursue writing and dance and other things and keep my being fulfilled.
Not be put in a box, not say I'm just this. I can be so many other things. Like for me, I went to school on a math and engineering scholarship. And so I was dual degree engineering. And, when I was growing up, it's like, if you did well in math, they're like, girl, go get you a scholarship. You're a math person. But it never really occurred to me, like, to say, well, do I like math? Like, it was just, you do well. But at the same time, I was a great writer. But they weren't giving a whole lot of money for writing scholarships. So they just pushed me kind of in the math engineering realm, and things worked out. But now it's like 25, 30 years later, and I'm really pouring into the writing. Like I'm really seeing that. I'm like, wow, well, this is something that I could have gone in a whole different direction, or it's not an either or, but it's a both and.
It's a both and.
That was wonderful, but there are other parts of me that I can lean into. There are other parts of me that I can, either pursue from a career perspective, a hobby perspective. So, we can be more. We don't have to be marginalized, or we don't necessarily have to be put in a box. We can do more than one thing.
Yes, we can do more than one thing, and it definitely starts with self-knowledge. And those of you who've been listening in for a while know that every episode I read a brief excerpt from the book, and I'm so happy with the one that Dana, I asked my guest to choose. And so Dana chose one from actually chapter 1, which is called Know Yourself, Remember. And it is about the importance of remembering who you are. So I'm going to share that excerpt with you now. And just, like you've heard it from Dana, you're going to hear it from me. And just want you, as you're listening, to really sort of sit quietly, get into yourself, and start asking yourself the questions, like, who am I? Who am I really? Who do I really want to be? Am I really being authentic to myself, or am I sort of following the path that has been laid out for me by others? So just think of that. And I'll just read this excerpt for you from chapter 1 of Space to Exhale. So it is called why it is important to remember who you are. So, you are worthy of living a soft, centered, serene life and having the best of everything. We all are. But sometimes life beats us down so much that we forget who we are. We forget that we are innately worthy. We forget that we deserve nice things. We forget our North Star. We get moved off our square. We twist ourselves into a whole different person just to try to fit in or get ahead. We shrink ourselves to avoid other people's disapproval. We attenuate our ambitions out of fear of being too much. We dim our light so our glow won't upset the haters. We hide from ourselves because we fear our own greatness. Then one day we wake up and we can no longer recognize ourselves. Who is this sad, shrunken, shadowy soul? We realize that this is not who we want to be or how we want to live. If our avatar is in charge, the public facing persona so many of us develop when we're in survival mode, we might be living a life that is inauthentic and unfulfilling, a life that makes it hard for us to breathe. A good life, a soft life, must be grounded in authenticity. The life of our dreams must be based on who we are in reality, not who someone else thinks we should be, not who our peers pressure us to be, not who the system tries to force us to be, who we are. Because how are you going to curate the life you want if you're building on a foundation of lies? As our good sister Lauren Hill sings, how you gonna win when you ain't right within? Look, no judgment here because I've been there. I'm sure you have too. We lie to ourselves about the kind of relationships we desire. We lie to ourselves about the career we would prefer. We lie to ourselves that the path is working for us. I mean, it might be, but often it isn't. What is the path, you ask? It looks a little like this: go to school, get good grades, be a good girl, be a good boy. Girls, don't laugh too hard, it's not ladylike. Boys, don't cry at all, it's not manly. Go to college, graduate with honors, get a job, a real job, a secure job, a respectable job. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, CEO. Go back to school, get your MBA, get married, buy a house, picket fence, of course. Bills, bills, bills. Have two kids, get a golden retriever, get a better job. Work, 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 work. Climb the corporate ladder higher. Retire, expire. There are nuances to this across cultures, but still, around the globe, the path is remarkably consistent. However, for many of us, the path does not work. It can leave us miserable, unfulfilled, and internally vacant, just marking time until the ultimate slumber. It can place us in a mindset of, is this it? And who wants to live like that? I truly believe that we are meant to enjoy life. We deserve better and we deserve more. That's why it's important to do the work of knowing yourself and remembering who you are. It gives you the opportunity to forge a different path, one that you have consciously chosen, a path that not only leads to joy, but also offers non-deferred happiness along the way. Remembering who you are provides stable scaffolding from which to construct the life of your dreams. Nothing gives you space to exhale like having the right foundation in place. And so, Miss Dana,
Yay!
thank
That
you,
was
thank you, thank you,
wonderful. That was
thank you.
amazing.
Thanks for choosing that excerpt. And yeah, so important, so important. I smiled when I saw what you had chosen to focus on.
Yes, that was, I mean, so many amazing gems. That's what it's all about. You know, I say this is not a dress rehearsal. Like,
Yeah.
you got to, you, in your words, curate the life that you want.
Hmm. And when you were speaking earlier about both yourself and your husband, and about like yourself, for example, with, oh well, she's good at math, so she needs to do math. Like, all of that
Right,
is part of the path. That's what I'm
right,
talking about.
right,
Where, but yeah, just because you're good at something
right,
doesn't mean that you love it or that it fills your soul with joy. you
right.
know Yeah, my
Right.
niece Taryn is similar to you in that she is one of, and I don't know that there are that many people in the world, to be honest, that are like have pretty much maybe equal strength in English and math, or that those kind,
Right.
right, are arts and sciences. So that's a rare balance, but she does as well. And so she could ace maths, doesn't like it.
Right.
So she's gone into linguistics.
Yeah, and good for her, and good
Right?
for her. And i
Yeah.
and i think that part of the issue, and I definitely can see it if you look generationally. I mean,
Mhm.
my parents were of a generation that they were in survival mode. It
Yes.
literally was creating, a life that, that you could sustenance,
Hmm.
and getting a decent job and building a career and having a house and, having a family. And I get that. It's almost like kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, we have to
Yes.
make sure we have the basics before we can start thinking about, what
Hmm.
we truly want and what our desires are, etc. And so we're fortunate enough to be in a position where, a lot of those things are cared for, but also, to make our interests more in the forefront. And so I do understand kind of the difference, because, my parents' generation, just very, very practical, very much about how do we put food on the table. Um, but I think that, it's really, really important to think through what you've been planted on this earth to do, and try to move towards that as much as possible.
Yes, because for many of us, our parents or our ancestors, and then of course, and our parents put so much in place. And, many of them did what they had to do,
Right,
but they
exactly.
they put a foundation in place for us so that we don't necessarily have to only exist in survival mode. And
Right,
so I fully agree with you that it behooves us, one of my favorite words.
right,
It behooves us to take advantage of some of the opportunities we've been given, and it also behooves us to, again, go within, get to know ourselves, and discover, okay, what really is our purpose on this
right,
earth? What is our
right,
purpose, and how can I, as a human being, get as close as possible to fulfilling that?
right,
You know?
right. And the
Yeah.
other part is, I think we get comfortable. You
Oh yeah.
know, taking risks is risky. I mean,
Hmm.
change oftentimes is risky. It can,
Hmm.
be really, really comfortable, even if we know what we're doing is not necessarily our soul's greatest desire.
Right.
It's comfortable, it's familiar,
It's
it's less
easy.
risky, it's
It's
easier.
easy. It's
Yeah.
easier.
And
Yeah.
so, there have been times when, you could find yourself thinking or dreaming about doing that other thing for months, which turn into years. And sometimes it
Mhm.
can be hard, or something external happens to kind of push us to have to make the change. But I think that's another big reason too, is sometimes it can be we can get a little too comfortable
Yeah.
with settling, because
Yeah.
settling can, just be easier.
Settling is definitely easier, and it's, I think it's important to, while I don't think that one should exist completely outside of one's comfort zone, because you also don't want to be constantly
Yeah,
uncomfortable
right.
and dysregulated.
Overly.
However, growth comes when, I'm going to use I'm sure I'm going to get my metaphors mixed up, but the flint has to, the two rocks have to
Mhm.
create friction
Right.
in order for
Right.
there to be a spark. I hope I got I hope I got that right.
Right.
I'm not the science person, but you
Right.
understand what I mean. Like, there does have to be some discomfort. There does have to be some discomfort. But so for those people who are, let's say, new to the journey of self introspection, right? Because that's what you have to do in order to gain more, part of what you have to do in order to gain more self knowledge. So people are, they're like sitting down, they're meditating, they're journaling, they're doing all this stuff and getting to know themselves, um and then they actually do start to know themselves and realize, oh my gosh, I have to change, right? Which
Mm.
is what you were just talking about. How can one actually find the courage
Mm.
to implement the changes? Okay, fine, you have the knowledge, and something needs to do it. How do you go the next step and actually implement?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess obviously that depends on, what you're implementing or,
Yes.
what sorts of changes.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say, like, for me, information is power. And that is really, really helpful. I always try to reach out to people who are doing what it is you want to do.
Yes.
And don't be discouraged if you reach out and that person doesn't respond. I mean, that's just the way it is. So don't reach out to one person, reach out to 20 people. I mean, you reach out to 20 people,
Yes.
three of them will respond. I remember when I was first, getting ready to do my very, very first LinkedIn learning course. And I didn't know anything about the platform. I hadn't developed any online courses before.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, they reached out to me, so that was helpful. But
Yes.
still, it was a brand new venture. I went online. I looked. I found instructors. I found instructors who looked like me, and I started reaching out. I started messaging people. Hey, you don't know me, but
Yeah.
and thankfully, one of those, I think it was Daisy Lovelace,
Mm-hmm.
was kind enough to reach out and talk to me and give me feedback and answer questions. There's nothing like good, practical, experiential knowledge. So one of the things I always say is reach out, talk to those people who, whether, I don't know if you want to go to law school, whatever it is, talk to people who are doing the thing and
Mm-hmm.
get some good feedback and information, and also talk to people who know you really well so
Yes.
that they can give you some very sound, sober advice,
Mm-hmm.
knowing you as a person and your talents and proclivities and maybe some of your challenges. But I would say gather some of that sort of feedback so that you can embark on it in a thoughtful way and save money. Okay, if you're talking about entrepreneurship, that's one of my tips. One of the things I'm going to be talking about when I do the webinar series. For goodness sake, please save some money. However much money you think you need to save, you might want to double it.
Double, triple, quadruple.
Yeah.
Save more. That and whatever the normal 10% contingency fee, make it 20-30%. The
Yeah.
contingencies are coming.
Exactly, because whatever you think is, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know
Yes.
what's going to happen, and it's the saddest thing. This is one of the things I've mentioned to you before we started, that I
Mm-hmm.
was in really developing a ton of videos, and a lot of these videos are about my journey and what I did, mistakes I made, etc. And I tell very candidly, I said I had a year. It took me. I had a certain amount saved, but it
Yes.
took me a year and a half before my business income, my business revenue could really support not just my business expenses, but pay me a salary to
Right.
cover all of my personal expenses and, my taxes, and have some
Mhm.
profit left over. For me, it took a year and a half. If it had taken 2 or 3 months longer, I probably would have had to go back to corporate. I just would have ran out of money. So it
Yes.
doesn't mean that I wasn't great at what I did. It doesn't mean that I couldn't have had this 22-year, entrepreneurial career. It's just I
Mhm.
simply ran out of cash. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like we said, we got to pay our bills. We got to put food on the table. So that's always going to come first. So those are some of the things I would say, if you're thinking about making that change or
Mhm.
venturing into entrepreneurship, those will be a few first steps.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. How soon are you doing this? Monetize your brilliance. We
Well,
we
I'm
we,
going to
we
start. Yeah,
when is
I'm
that?
going to
Let me
start.
just throw this up on the. I'm like, I feel like we need this now, or maybe like a year or two ago. So tell the
Yeah.
people a bit about. We'll do a little side quest and then we'll come back. So tell the
Yeah.
people more about what you were just talking about.
Well, part of the impetus for me is looking at all these crazy stats about 300,000 plus Black women, losing their jobs. And I know I've talked to other people, and we're all hurting. You were asking me
Yes.
before off, how was it impacting me? And my business is not DEI focused, but it still has had an indirect impact because one of my biggest clients is, I will just say, a target perhaps of the administration. And so a lot of people have felt a lot of impacts. And so I know there are a lot of people out there who are trying to pivot, who are trying to look at entrepreneurial venture. So I'm going to be starting to put videos out in the next 30 days. So just in the next few weeks, you'll start to see the videos. And oh my gosh, Jim is on here. Jim was one of my first bosses at IBM. Thank
Hey,
you so much,
Jen.
Jim. Jim's amazing. So I'm going to be, starting to put those out in the next few weeks, and we're going to have enough to have weeks and weeks of videos out there. And then I'll start the webinar series probably around the beginning of the year. But I do have a link that I can share if you're interested, if you want to get on the notification list for the webinar series. But even before then, I'm going to start putting the videos out. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think, 22 years, I've worked exclusively 100% in my business. And I've had ups and downs, and I've made all kind of mistakes, and I've done all kind of boneheaded things. And I've also, figured out some stuff that worked really, really well. And so I just want to share a lot of that. I want to talk through a lot of that, share a lot of lessons learned. And I want to share some of my mistakes, because I want you don't have to make my mistakes. You can make your own, but I want you to learn from mine. Because I think that there's so many brilliant people out there. There's so many talented people out there who just don't quite know how to monetize that, or they're not, they're just not clear on entrepreneurship. And so I just want to share what I can.
And thank you for that, because this is, I think it's needed at any time, but particularly now. Monetize Your Brilliance, your webinar series is so necessary, because, and here's the thing, I've heard 300,000, I've heard up to 400,000, whatever the number is, it's too many Black women who have lost their jobs. I believe, though, that there is a shadow cohort, demographic, whatever, under that, also of Black women, but Black women entrepreneurs, right? And consultants who are not being tracked because they're not part of corporate.
Right, exactly.
Right? Because I think if that, and somebody please do a study. I can't do it.
Yes.
So Dr. Chantel Frazier, I hope you're on this call. If you're not, I'll be emailing you. But she does amazing jobs with studies of this kind. But it needs to be studied, and those numbers need to be tracked as well, because every single Black woman entrepreneur and consultant that I've spoken to, they're feeling the squeeze. They've lost major clients. They're having to reconsider, their living situation, their working situation, just all kinds of things. They've had to, reduce the size of their teams, or maybe eliminate their team altogether. And so I would like for that number to be captured as well, because that's an important number.
Right.
Because everybody is being affected. So for someone like you to come and say, hey, I have been doing this for 20 plus years. I've been through all kinds of ups and downs, and here are some tools that can help you navigate some of these storms with a little less turbulence. That is so necessary right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's so sad, because it's not an accident. I mean, they're targeting our income sources. They absolutely know where to target to hurt, to hurt us in our pockets. And it's being effective. It's absolutely being effective, because I agree with you. The people that I talk to are definitely feeling it, definitely experiencing it. And we've always know we got to diversify. We always know we got to have like 5, 6, 7 jobs. We got to diversify. So we need to start sharing that information. We know that our cheese has moved. So
our cheese has moved.
We got to move with it.
We know who moved it. And we know who moved it.
Exactly. So we got to find it. Okay. We got to find it. We got to.
We need some brie. We need some cheddar, some camembert, a little Moinster. We need a whole bunch.
Yes. Right? Yes. And we've got to start, talking more and more, sharing the information. If I get an opportunity, it may not be for me, but it might be for you. So we absolutely have to do that.
Definitely. I'm glad that we got here, because a big part of soft living and sort of developing a blueprint for soft living, of course, it has to involve your work life, your career. It's not just much as I would love to. It's not just sort of sitting on your couch meditating all day. Because work, this is the matrix in which we live. Work has to be done, bills need to be paid. But for a lot of Black women, more is demanded of us. We have to overperform, over deliver, overcommit, and do what I call like live life in overdrive. Always, always on.
Right.
And so how can self knowledge help us push back against those pressures, those outside pressures from the world, and help us live life closer to underdrive or closer to a state of balance?
Right, right. Well, I think for me, it's about trying to be proactive and a lot less reactive. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times when we find ourselves chasing our tail
Yes.
and trying to be over here, trying to be over here, this new shiny object, and somebody said, "Oh, I got to get on Slack, I got to get on this, I got to get on Threads, I got to, do this, do that." I'm on 5, 6, 8, 10 different, social medias because you feel a pressure. You feel like, okay, I'm behind. But I think it's no, you've got to slow down, be thoughtful, and also have a plan. You're much more likely to be pulled in 8 to 10 different directions if you never had a plan to begin with. And
Yeah.
so
It's like
that
because if you don't have a plan, then you're just reacting
exactly.
on the fly. Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
that African proverb, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And you'll waste so much time,
Love
going this way, going that way. And that's one
that.
of the things I'm going to talk about. I mean, because again, I'll say I did a lot of things wrong, but one of the things I did very right was I always had a 3-phase model of how I
Mm-hmm.
was pursuing it. And it worked. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful to be in phase 3. But the point is, if you at least have a plan, you have an agenda, you have something documented, written down, and it won't be 100%. I mean, things are going to come in and you're going to have to make adjustments and changes, but you need to have something there to ground you so that when, the world is coming at you and making you feel like you're less than or you're behind or you got to catch up or you got to get on this and you got to join this group. And if you're not in that group, you're not, you're going to miss out and
Yeah.
you do all the things. You at least have something that's grounding you so that you can say, okay, yeah, I have a discretionary amount of energy. Let me be sure I'm putting my time, my talent, my
Mm-hmm.
energy into opportunities or activities that are in alignment with my plan so that
Yeah.
I can do this proactively versus being very reactive. And so for me, that's what works really well because I can tone out a whole bunch of stuff. Like I call myself, I'm like the Betty White of Facebook. Like I am 54. I can't do all the things. Every time there's
Yeah.
a new platform, I can't be out there. Like I pretty much I have a few that I rely on
Mm-hmm.
and work smart, just like you. You're doing this podcast and it's going out, what, 3, 4, 5, different places
As
at
many as
once.
possible. Yes.
Yeah. So figure out, same thing like when I was writing the Forbes column, I had to find ways to
Mm-hmm.
be smart and say, okay, if I'm going to put this energy into this article, how can I then repurpose this content so that
Yes.
it shows up 3 or 4 different ways? Because I can't do this every day. I can't do this every other day. Okay. I'm going to do this once. And then when I do that, okay, maybe this is my topic for the next 2 weeks, and maybe I shoot a couple quick videos, but now I've got content for this 2-week period.
Yes,
So for me,
absolutely.
yeah. So for me,
Yeah.
a lot of it is about having a plan and being proactive,
Mm-hmm.
and working smart and being efficient so that you're not, like a rat in a wheel, constantly
Mm-hmm.
overperforming.
Love it. Love it. Um, so you mentioned having a plan, and of
Mhm.
course, this episode is called the Blueprint for Soft Living. Blueprint is a
Mhm.
kind of a plan. So if this were a literal blueprint, right? If we were
Mhm.
building a blueprint or creating one right now, what are the first rooms or areas that you think every Black woman should include on her in her blueprint for soft living?
Mm.
Mm,
Well, I think one of part of it goes back to what you said at the very beginning, because I love that quote. You said it slightly differently, but it's about the real self-care is designing a life that you don't feel the need to regularly escape from.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes.
That when the first time I saw that, the first time I read that on LinkedIn, that was so powerful to me, because that is, I mean, that's everything. It's about designing the life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that look like for you? And if
Mm-hmm.
you can, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have bad days or, get frustrated and have issues and problems. I mean, we're humans, so we have that. But in terms of the blueprint, I would say, what does my professional life look
Mm-hmm.
like? And what level of control do I have over that? And also, how aligned is that to just my natural gifts,
Yes.
talents, and interests?
And
That's
interest
the other
and
part.
interests.
And interests, right. So for me, that's a lot of it. And at the same time, I think there are other pieces of it. It's like, what does my daily regimen look like?
Yes,
For me,
yes.
I'm very intentional about like my mornings. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's another benefit of entrepreneurship. If health is important to you, um, if meditation is important to you, like what does that morning routine look like? For me, I feel like I failed meditation class like 30 years ago and I never went back. So I'm not great on meditation, but I do pray. So I have prayer.
There you
And then I
go.
also have, in addition to prayer, I call it Conversations with God,
I
which is
love
also
that.
a book. And if you haven't
It's,
read it, by
I
Neil
love
Donald
that
Walsh,
book.
yeah,
Yes.
I've read like Neil Donald
It's a
Walsh has like
series.
10 books. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's oh my gosh, yeah, it's book 1, book 2, book 3, but then there are like 3 or 4 other ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the whole book is just his conversation with God. And so for me, that's a lot of my regular routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say have a space where you're thinking about that. Like, how are you connecting to spirit? How are you connecting, grounding yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Your physical body. Like for me, I jog really, really slow, but I start my morning, with jogging, because then it puts me in a mental space. At least the first thing I do in the morning, well, after I drop off my kids, is I do something for me.
For
And
you,
yes,
exactly.
do
Yes.
something for you. It's like you're making those deposits, and I'm doing something that's healthy, something for my body. So I
Mm-hmm.
think psychologically, it puts you into a different space, because no matter what else happens the rest of the day, I know I did that. And I know I started my day off in a super positive way. And I know I'm doing super healthy things for my body. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, like, looking at going back to the blueprint, those would be kind of the buckets. It's like the professional bucket. Am I designing a work life that really taps into my talents? And it also is lucrative. I'm not taking a
Hey,
vow of poverty, and definitely
no,
not. Okay.
no.
So, but then there's also that introspection, that wellness, that self-care.
Mm-hmm.
What do my days look like?
Yes.
And what can I do on a regular basis to reinforce that commitment to health, that reinforce that commitment to spirituality, and
Mm-hmm.
making them habits.
Yeah.
My favorite books, one of my favorite is Atomic Habits. If you haven't read Atomic Habits, in fact, I
Yes.
might read it again. It was so good.
Because can I don't think one can ever read it too many times, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was it was just so good. So
Yeah, that's one of those life-changing books that there's some books that are, and this is not a bad thing. Some books are like bookshelf books,
right.
and some
Mm-hmm.
books are nightstand books.
Right. Yes.
I believe that is a nightstand, or if you have like a reading chair, like some
Yeah.
books are your reading chair book. So that's definitely one of those. I love that you talked about all those different buckets, like the aspects of the blueprint, and it reminds me of feng shui, right? And so
Oh
feng
yeah.
shui, right? You have the nine squares, and so I think health is right in the middle. I don't even quote me on this because I haven't looked at a feng shui bagua in a long time. But basically, there are 9 elements according to feng shui of a balanced life. So now that we're talking, I hadn't thought about it before, but now that you mentioned all those different buckets, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of
Oh
like it.
yeah.
You have your health, your wealth, your personal life, your spiritual life. Something that we haven't talked about much a bit at the beginning is like relationships. Not
Mhm.
I mean, you have talked about your children, of course, you've mentioned your husband, um but what about other relationships in additional to romantic, like professional relationships, platonic relationships, regular friendships? Like what role do those
Right.
kinds of relationships play in building your soft life?
Right. I think it is so important, and it's something that I need to do a better job of. And I'm laughing because I was just saying to myself the other day that, like, my daughter's in soccer season right now, and everything is just always crazy when soccer season's going on. And I've been saying to myself, because we travel like almost every other weekend, and um, that I haven't been having I try to have like my girlfriend lunches,
Mm-hmm.
and just there's almost no way to kind of put into words how helpful it's, like literally plugging your phone back in, like recharging that battery when you can
Yes.
be in a space with someone that you know really gets you, that shares your background, that shares a lot of experiences, that really wants the best for you. And it's so interesting. I'm laughing because I texted a friend the other day and I was like, oh, we haven't, caught up in a while. We
Right.
need to do lunch. And then she texted back and she said, oh yeah, she said, I need a brown girl hug. And I was
Oh,
like, I need a brown girl hug too. I think I needed it more than she needed it. And I just always leave those times for me. I was about to say lunch is always, I'm such a foodie, but
yeah.
I always leave
Food,
those
food is
meetings.
important. Food is love.
Yes.
Food is love.
Yes, and I just leave it feeling so recharged,
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
very, very different way, loved on in a very, very different way. And so I think that those relationships are important. And in fact, I got on you can't see I'm a Spelman grad. So there's
Yes.
nothing like being surrounded by just warmth and love and, black girl magic, but
Yes.
it's really, really important. But I think that, it's like a garden. You got to invest, you got to take time. Sometimes you got to weed the garden too. That's a whole another topic for a whole nother day. But
Yes. Yes.
but you
Exactly.
got to make that investment because there's so much
Mhm.
going on and life is going on at like 100 miles an hour. It's, we can just get so consumed with, the mom stuff and the dog and the work and the videos and LinkedIn and all that.
Mhm.
But it's a way to kind of recharge and come back to you just as a person. Because, when
Yeah.
I'm sitting down with my girlfriends, nobody cares about all that, like LinkedIn
Right.
stuff,
And that's so important, that those kinds of friendships that don't care about your title.
Right.
I
Exactly.
cannot describe how it automatically, like, it brings my shoulders down, like I can relax. Like you feel like you don't have to um perform,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. You can truly just show up, however you want to show up, right? Show up as your full, authentic self. You don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. If life is going great, they're going to
Right.
celebrate with you fully. If it's going
Right.
not so great, they will commiserate fully and try and offer support. And those kinds of friends are, whew, the absolute best. The absolute
Absolutely.
best. Yeah. And they
Because
do add softness and comfort to your life. They really do.
I think we all need emotional support and we maybe don't quite realize it, but we need that emotional support and it makes a really, really big difference. So all those relationships matter. And I think we just have to remind ourselves to make time for them. Because the problem is if you don't, make time for it, months will go by.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. You got to schedule. We're at a point now where, I ask my friends, I'm like, send me your calendar link.
yeah,
I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, no, because it makes it easier for all of us,
right. It
instead of
does.
doing the endless round of,
Right.
"Well, I can't do Tuesday and like, and I have this with the kids, just send me your calendar link. I will book a time. It does not take anything off of me to do that. And that way we just get to, enjoy some time together. And speaking of enjoying time together, I know
Time.
I know we're at time. We're at time. I have one more question that I wanna try and squeeze in just before the end.
Yeah.
So, um, since the show is about finding space to exhale, how are you planning today, this week, in the next, I don't know, couple of weeks? How are you planning to find moments to exhale in your life? Like what are you, yeah, what do you have planned that can help you
Well,
exhale?
I did my jog this morning. So again, that for me is, the sunlight, the vitamin D, just being outside. So that's kind of that's my big daily exhale. And then
Mhm.
there's a guy on LinkedIn and he started posting a prayer every
Girl,
day.
yes.
And
You
you know
reposted that
what?
today, right?
Yeah, so I've started
Somebody,
reposting them. Yeah, I've
somebody
started
did.
reposting
Either
them.
you or
'Cause-
Kimberly Bryant.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've started reposting them because I didn't realize, like, I started reading it, and that became my time to just stop, read it, think
Yeah.
about it.
Yes.
And it's been very restorative for me. I've really appreciated it because, like, he even messaged me and he was like, "Oh, thank you for reposting." I was like, "Thank you." I was like, because I didn't
Exactly.
really realize I needed this, but it's been a real blessing for me.
Mhm.
And so I really look forward to that.
Yeah, I love that's why I get a little, it's just too much. Too much is going on, you know? And
Mhm.
so posts of that nature definitely help me to be able to, take a breath and relax and remember that there is more to life. There's more in the unseen than the seen. And
Yeah.
so try to focus on that and try to focus on the most high and focus on good people, right?
Yes,
Good people.
absolutely.
So Miss Dana, good people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here
Thank
today.
you.
So absolutely amazing. And so folks, that is our show for today and it was absolutely lovely. I hope you all got as much from it as I did because I definitely feel like my heart is full. And so make sure to tune in every Tuesday to Space to Exhale, the podcast, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you can't make the live show, then just subscribe on Spotify and YouTube to catch the replay. And of course, you know what to do: rate, leave a review, all the usual things. Make sure, we didn't get to talk much about it today, but make sure to go and get Dana's book, The Unwritten Rules of Managing Up by Dana Brownlee, and it is available on her website. So make sure, if you want to dive into some more of the topics that she and I spoke about today, definitely make sure to check her book out. And of course, check out Space to Exhale as well. So goodbye for now, folks. And remember, you are worthy of rest, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of having time and space to exhale. Bye.